Everybody, it's Terry with Crafty Book Nerd. Happy New Year. 2025 is upon us. But first, we've got to talk about the books I read in 2024. So today in this video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 books and a few statistics about my reading for this year. But first, you know what time it is. Time for our quote of the day. And today's quote is very appropriate to begin the new year, and it says, "If you don't ask, the answer is always no. If you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you don't step forward, you're always in the same spot." So think about that. So I had a great reading year. I read 108 books, and out of those 108 books, this was the breakdown of ebooks, audiobooks, and hardcover. Most of the books I read were hardcover, and then I had quite a few audio and then the ebooks. These are my genres for 2024. As you can see, no surprise because it is my favorite genre, and that's psychological thrillers or thrillers. And I lumped those together, and those came in at 41%, followed by fantasy at 18.5, historical fiction, which I was surprised. I read quite a bit of historical fiction, 11%, followed by mystery at 9, and then we have romance, dystopian, crime, and children. So I did have a variety, but still reading my favorite genre, which is thrillers. Here are my star readings for the year. Out of the 108 books, there were 39,344 pages. My average star rating was 3.7. I had 5 two-star books this year. I had 37 three-star books, and I read a whopping 50 books that I gave a 4-star to, a 4-star to. And then I had 16 books that were a 5-star. Out of that 16, I chose a few honorable mentions, and then I chose my top 10. I also had some rereads this year. Actually didn't read them. I did the audio. Onyx Storm, if you're a follower of Fourth Wing, you know it's coming out in the next couple weeks. And I read these quite a while ago and just wanted to refresh my memory. And so I found something called the graphic audio of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Both of them have 2 parts. So there's two of them you have to get for Fourth Wing and 2 for Iron Flame. I have never listened to an audiobook like this before, and now I am going to be spoiled because it is a full cast of characters. Every character has a different voice, and that was amazing. If that wasn't amazing enough, and I have listened to audiobooks with full cast of characters, it also had the sounds, all the sounds. There was music for part of it. You could hear the horses, you could hear the dragons when they would breathe, the fire, you could hear water running from waterfalls. Everything was just so vivid. I could see it playing out in my mind. It was amazing. It was so amazing. And I can't recommend these enough. Even if you've read both of these, I highly recommend you listen to these graphic audios. They were fabulous for sure. All right, so let's get into my honorable mentions. These were all 5 stars, and we have Going Zero, The Couple at Number 9, and The Surrogate Mother. And you can see the authors of each one of these. Claire Douglas, the author of The Couple at Number 9, is a new author to me this year, and I read several of her books, and I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed her style of writing. There was a lot of twists and turns in her books, and they were really good. So if you've never read anything by her, you should definitely check out The Couple at Number 9. Now, of course, Frida McFadden, I've read a lot by her, but this one, The Surrogate Mother, was a really good one. So let's start number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have Baby X by Kira Peikoff. This is a thriller. It could be a bit of a dystopian. It's set in the future, and it's about scientists who take DNA and genetically manipulate that to make babies. Thus the title Baby X. There are 3 different point of views, and you're wondering how these are going to come together, but they do in the end. The three different point of views, the three different storylines, all are related to each other. It had a lot of twist in it, and the thing that got me about this book was that it was a little bit scary to me because I could definitely see something like this happening in the future. So that's Baby X. Coming in at number 9 is Strange Sally Diamond by Lisa Nugent. Now, this one I did listen to it on audio, and it was so good that I found myself listening while I was cooking in the kitchen, cleaning up, whatever I was doing, I was listening to it because I couldn't wait to get through it to see what was going to happen. It is very dark, it is disturbing, and there are a lot of troubled characters in this book. But I fell in love with Sally. Sally is a very strange character, but she's very believable. And to see what happened to her and what she went through, it just really tore on my heartstrings. And I wanted to find out what was going to happen to Sally. And it was just really good, a very good read. Coming in at number 8 was my favorite Frida McFadden that I read this year, and that's The Perfect Son. Now, this is not a new one of hers. I can't remember what year this one was published, but it's not a new one. But it was very good. It's probably one of my favorites by her. It's about a missing young girl and a family that has something to do with this missing young girl. This family is very complicated. This family has dark secrets. There are different points of views in the story, and the end really got me like, wow, what just happened? Because I never saw it coming. It was a good one. Check it out. Number 7 was an historical fiction. Um, and I did read quite a few historical fictions this year, and I really enjoyed them. I think I have another one in my top 10 too. So this one's about three young women, and these young women don't really know each other, but through the power of books, they become friends. This story happens during the London Blitz, and these three women are trying to help lighten the mood of the people when they have to go underground when the bomb sirens go off. So, when the sirens go off, everybody has to go underground to be safe from the bombing. And these three young women find a way to bring books to the people while they're in these shelters underground. And it's just so heartwarming and so good, and it gives you hope, and it's just a really good book, and I really enjoyed this one. Number 6 was my only nonfiction book that I read this year, and that's called The Search for Truth and Justice After Serial, Anad's Story by Rabah Chaudhry, who was Anad's friend. In 2000, my daughter called me one day and she said, "Mom, have you ever listened to a podcast?" And I said, "No, not really." She said, "Well, you have got to listen to this podcast about this young Muslim boy who has been accused of killing his girlfriend." She said, "It is so good." And she said, "Mom, I don't know if he did it or not, but it's so good. You've got to listen to it." So in 2000, I did. And you can still listen to the podcast if you're interested. So this book came like 20, I think this book was 2020, 20 years after what happened to him, and he was sentenced to life in prison. um, Robbie Chaudhry, who becomes an attorney, is his friend, and she finds new evidence. And it's a story, and it's a real story, and it's sad because it's about misjustice, and the way that Anad was treated. It also gave me an insight into the Muslim faith, which I thought was very interesting. So, if you've never listened to the podcast, I promise you it is worth the time to listen to it. And then after you listen to it, you'll want to pick up this book. It was really good. And I'm not going to tell you where Anad is right now. You really need to do the podcast and the book to find out what happened to him. Coming in at number 5 is one that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, and that's called Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. Now, this one you need to do the audio because the main part of this book is a podcast. And so if you don't listen to it, you miss out on that element of the podcast. So you really need to listen to that. So this is about a young woman, and she has been accused of killing her best friend, and it happened many, many years ago. Well, now this young man comes into the picture, and he wants to do a podcast about what happened all those years ago. And the main character doesn't really know what happened. She is not convinced that she did or didn't kill her best friend. And so the podcaster is trying to help her get to the truth of what happened. There is some humor in this book that keeps it going. It's about relationships, about getting to the truth. It's definitely a mystery slash thriller, and it's very twisty. And I highly, highly recommend the audio for Listen for the Lie. Coming in at number 4 is another historical fiction. Can you believe it? And that is Sparks Like Stars by Nadia Hashimi. This was great storytelling. This was heartbreaking. It is about a young Afghan American girl who experiences something in childhood, and now she is reflecting 30 years after that event. She meets someone comes along that she meets from her past, and she wants to find out what really happened 30 years ago. It's a story of survival. It's just really good. I highly recommend it. I'd never read anything by this author, and I would definitely read something else by her. This next one, number 3, Rebecca Yarros, The Last Letter. Okay, here's what happened. After I had after I had read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, I thought, has Rebecca Yarros written anything else? And I found that she had. And this was the first one, and I've picked up some more since then, that I picked up by her. She is an author I definitely want to read to zero. But this book broke me. I had to keep tissues. I was in tears many, many times reading this book. It's about love and loss. It's about Ella, and Ella is a single mother of twins, and she is trying to raise them and take care of them on her own. In the meantime, her brother dies, and she becomes pen pals with her brother's friend, Beckett, who she calls Chaos. It's two different points of view. We have Beckett and Ella's point of view in the story. And it's just so heartwarming. It makes you mad at times at both characters for their stubbornness. And like I said, it broke me. It was just so good. And I can't wait to read my next book by Rebecca Yarros that's not in the Fourth Wing series. So, so good. I had a hard time deciding between 2 and 1. This number 2 book could have also been number 1. These two were very close for me. I enjoyed both of them probably equally, but I went ahead and I put number 2 as The Frozen River. And y'all, this is the third historical fiction in my top 10. Now, you know, I'm a thriller reader. I read most thrillers, but 10, which means 30% of my top 10 was historical fiction. I'm really enjoying these historical fictions, and if you've got any recommendations for me, I would love to hear them. So we have The Frozen River. This takes place in Maine in 1789 in the winter. It's very, very cold. Martha is a midwife in this town where she lives, and what happens is a body is found in the river. A dead man is found. Thus the title, The Frozen River. And she becomes involved in the case. And what you find out in this story is in 1789, what women said didn't matter much. Um, Women were not thought of very highly. Their opinions didn't matter. It was a man's world for sure. But Martha is determined to get to the truth of what happened to this man. We have dual timelines, past and present, which I absolutely love. It's action packed. There are some trigger warnings in here for violence, rape. So, those kinds of things, abuse are in here, just so you know. But oh my gosh, so, so good. In fact, I might find the audio of this one and listen to it I would definitely read it again or listen to it again because it was so, so good. And finally, coming in at number one, which probably won't be a surprise to many people, is The Women by Christian Hannah. Okay, this is another historical fiction. I said I read three, I read four. Four historical fictions in my top 10, not three. This book is about friendships, it's about patriotism. It's in the Vietnam War and the role that women played, especially the women nurses, which were what women were. But for the longest, the government told the American people that there were no women in the war. Well, there were. They might have not been on the battlefield, but they were in the battlefield of the hospital caring for all these injured men. Um, and the role that these women played was critical to the whole war. It was a very tough read. Christian Hannah writes so well. Her writing makes you feel like you're there, especially in the scenes where you can hear the bombs in the background and the ambulances, or however they transported the bodies to the place where the nurses were. You felt like you were there. At times, it was hard to read because it was a little bit graphic, but I got through it. And if it wasn't bad enough with what they had to deal with when they were in the Vietnam War, when the women came home, it became even tougher for them. They were not treated with respect. They they weren't looked upon in a favorable light when they came home, these women that had been there. And then, of course, our main character has things that she has to deal with when she comes home. It was so good. Um, I would definitely read this one again. It was good. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 for 2024. The next video I'll be coming with you soon is my plans for 2025. If you've been with me for the last few years as a subscriber, thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Love to have you as a subscriber. Love to have you share this channel with your friends, where I talk about books and I also do some crafting. And so I'll be sharing some things with you in the next year. So I just want to give everybody a very heartfelt thank you for being here with me on this journey. And I can't wait to hear about your thoughts on my top 10, or if you have any recommendations. What were your top 3 books of the year? I would love to know, because if I haven't read them, I'm going to add them to my list. Thanks again, everybody. Bye from Terry, Crafty Book Nerd.